Welcome back to the ReidConnect-Ed podcast, co-hosted by myself, educational therapist Alexis Reid, and my brother, licensed psychologist Gerald Reid. We're providing you with expert and nuanced discussions on topics relevant to mental health, education, and sport and performance psychology. Across the country, educators and families are asking an important question. How do we help boys grow into thoughtful, capable, and compassionate men in an increasingly complex world? Adolescence has never been simple, but today's boys face unique pressures, from social media and academic expectations to questions about identity, purpose, and belonging. Schools are being asked to do more than just prepare students for college or careers. They're being called to help shape character, resilience, leadership, and a sense of responsibility to something larger than themselves.
So where are we with the mental health of boys in high school these days? As we spoke about in past episodes, the mental health among youth has declined over the past 2 decades. So this is not a function of COVID. This is not something that just happened during the days of COVID. In fact, the mental health of adolescents has actually gotten worse over the past couple decades, and we're trying to really pick apart the pieces to that so we can try to, number one, prevent that decline and also do something to treat it. Roughly 25% of adolescent boys have a mental, emotional, or behavioral disorder. And the CDC suggests that 20% of adolescents have unmet mental health needs, meaning that they have significant mental health concerns that are not being treated appropriately. And that's definitely a big issue. And when we look at men, so grown men, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 1 in 10 men have either depression or anxiety that's clinically significant, and yet less than half of them receive treatment. What are the reasons why this has happened? Different pressures and societal pressures. I think one of the things that I hear a lot about, and the questions that come up in therapy for me, since I work with a lot of males in my practice, is just this idea of what does it mean to be a man? And I think the question is not a straightforward question, right? It's not a math equation. It's not like a fact that you can look up and say, oh, this is exactly what it means to be a man. It's a very abstract idea. And that is happening in tandem with social media becoming so profoundly influential and so in the face of young people today. I mean, they're constantly on their phones. I was talking to my sister today about just looking down the street while people are walking. They're just constantly on their phone looking down. I don't know how people walk and look at their phone at the same time. They're at the gym. They're on their phone all the time at the gym. It's just, pervasive. And what I find is that, there's a lot of messaging about what it means to be a man. People are kind of trying to fill in the blanks, people who want to be influential on the social media platforms, people who want to grow influential status and be a kind of what they call a thought leader, right? There's a lot of people trying to fill in the gaps of trying to explain something that doesn't have a full answer. And one of the things about being a psychologist that's so important to me is that everybody is unique in their own way. So whenever you hear something that's very dogmatic in terms of this is the way this is for all men, I'm very, very skeptical about it. Any type of messaging that they're getting online is going to be very extreme and very dogmatic, and it misses the point that everybody has individual differences. We are a collection of qualities. We are not one thing. And I find in my practice that people who come into therapy, when they're honest and they're open, they open up about different parts of themselves that they feel like are not allowed to be shared in public or in the sphere of society or in collective groups of men or boys, right? And to me, it's one of the most profound experiences I can share about being a therapist is when they're honest, there are parts of themselves, their personality, their interests, their values, their curiosities, what they actually care about. It's much more complicated and much more nuanced. And I think that gets lost along the way in this age of social media. And I hear about young men and boys actually opening up to other young boys and men or women or whoever and actually getting support that they need because, as I said, boys have mental health issues as much as anybody else in the world, right? And mental health concerns require opening up and being honest and sharing emotions as opposed to all the ways that boys have historically compensated for insecurities and challenges, right? There's a whole list, acting out behaviors, being irritable, being angry, being controlling in relationships, overworking, compensating with maybe promiscuity or perhaps, trying to be the big dog in a group or something like that, right? Or even, getting obsessed over what their body looks like. There's a million ways people cope. As a psychologist, I've seen all the ways people cope with their insecurities and their challenges. And it's an important thing, and I'll end here. It's very important to understand that these are signs that there actually could be something underneath the surface. And it's important to not just say, oh, that behavior is wrong or there's something wrong with that behavior, but also to say what's behind that behavior. And as a psychologist, as a therapist, I'm really grateful that I give people a chance to understand what's going on inside of them that leads to these types of behaviors that could get them in trouble, could get them negative attention, could kind of mask the actual issues going on inside. So I'm so happy that we have Adam Lewis here today, and Alexis is going to introduce our guest today to talk about the topic of young men.
Now, thinking about all this, we were trying to find the right fit to have this conversation. And not only did Adam and I both study at Boston College in our graduate work, where we became, people who just shared deep thoughts about the things we were learning and our experiences and helping educate young people and just thinking about life in general. And Adam not only has a background in applied developmental and educational psychology, as I do, but he is also one of the most authentic and genuine people that we've ever met. So today we're joined by Adam Lewis, who is the head of school at Catholic Memorial here in Massachusetts. As an all-boys school, Catholic Memorial has a focus on forming young men through a combination of academic rigor, faith, mentorship, athletics, and service. In this conversation, we'll explore what it really means to educate boys today, how schools can cultivate integrity and leadership, the role of mentorship and role models, the challenges boys are facing right now, and how educators, as well as families, can help young men develop the confidence, emotional intelligence, and character they need to thrive. Adam, we're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Lex. Thanks, G. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, so this conversation could probably go on for hours.
Yes.
And likely it will outside of the context of the studio and the podcast right now. Yep. But let's start just, we can give your resume forever, but I really want to know, what drove you to this purpose-driven life where you are at the center of the development of so many young men and boys?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, Lex. It was funny, tangential, it's not a great way to start, but for me, we're talking about boys. I was reminded as you were sharing some of our background that you were the first two to see my boy when Isaac was born 16 years ago.
Yes.
16 years ago. And
I almost dropped that. We went to grad school in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And I don't want to give my resume because it's frankly boring and not relevant. But I was just reminded of that, and somewhat symbolically when we talk about boys, right? And I'm blessed with two that I have a particular place in my heart. My daughter, I would say, even a more particular place. Actually, she's very beautiful.
They all are.
You were there when Isaac was born, and so we do have a really special relationship. So I feel so honoured to be part of this conversation. It's something that I feel so strongly about. What are the roots of it? I went to an all-boys school myself. You can probably tell from the accent, I grew up in Australia, in Canberra, Australia. I went to an all-boys school, Marist, Canberra, which still occupies a very special place in my heart. But I was there in the 80s and 90s, and while feeling really blessed with my formation and education there, and it certainly without that experience, I wouldn't have moved into education. When I left school, I did what people advised me to do in that day and age. If you're a relatively smart man, you go and do business and law, and I started doing that and became disillusioned within the first lecture and said, why am I doing this? Because at that age, no one told me to follow my heart. I literally say that to my 600 boys at Catholic Memorial who I love, but no one said that to me then. But I did find myself to education and have been in it since and feel very passionately about it. In fact, I feel more passionately about it now than I ever have, probably because of what Jerry shared at the beginning of the context, because I believe authentic formation, particularly for boys, and I will talk about boys not in any way disrespectful to girls, but I don't pretend to know about girls. I've worked in all boys schools for 25 years.
And you've worked in a lot of different all boys schools across the globe, actually, which I think gives you a really special, unique appreciation and perspective to share too. Yeah,
I hope so. I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
And I've worked, at all boys schools in Ireland and back home in Sydney and Melbourne and now in Boston. And I was at BC High, which is a similar school to CM in some ways. but each all-boys school has its own context. A lot of it has to do with charism. So I've been very, very lucky. And I think it does help me with a certain perspective. But I can tell you that regardless of accent or country, boys are facing the same challenges. And I don't mean to generalize that, because what Jer shared really resonated with me, that we tend to, particularly about boys, we tend to generalize about them in a way that's very convenient. And the worst thing that anyone can say to me is that boys will be boys. I have a visceral reaction to that, because what that does in terms of reducing them and diminishing them, and not identifying their individuality and own context, is actually soul destroying. And we label boys in a way that we don't with other groups. People have their own opinion on toxic masculinity. I don't like the phrase. It doesn't mean I don't acknowledge that there are traditional stereotypes and bravado that my generation hasn't solved for our young men. And I say that to my boys at Catholic Memorial all the time, and apologise to them and say that our generation has not solved this for you. But I am going to do my level best to move your hearts so you can for your sons.
It's beautiful.
And so I haven't answered the question directly, but I hope that it gives you a sense of why I feel so passionate about it. You both know me well. I am idealistic by nature. And so I work in particular types of schools because I believe in the schools I work, there is a call to something deeper. And there is I have an expectation of our men in our place, a standard that transcends academics, transcends anything that's superficial, that has to go much deeper and be interiorized and internalized and moved in the heart in a way that is not easy. And I will say very openly to our men that the external work's easy. And I don't diminish that for them, because for some kids, math is really hard. For some kids, playing hockey is hard. Getting cut is hard. I can't. Hockey's just a ridiculous sport, so I can't do that. It's so dangerous. I can't even enjoy watching the kids do it, because I really think it doesn't matter. Let's not talk about hockey. But either way, that stuff for me is easy. The hardest part is the interior work, and I will say very clearly to them that my biggest challenge is to, through curriculum, through athletics, through co-curricular, through service, through retreats, we've got to get the information that they receive in their head to their heart. And that's where the work begins. And that's where the formation begins, because how they wrestle with that will determine the type of men they are and what they value. And I will say to them very openly that I don't like doing that, because often I don't like what I find. I just don't.
Yeah.
Because I'm a man formed in a particular way. I battle with my own demons about being a man. Who am I as a father? Who am I to stand in front of 600 boys and try and model a set of values? But what I know I have to do is do the work, and I have to go in. The world says something very different nowadays. And I'm speaking metaphorically, but I'm hoping it makes sense, that if I believe that, if I believe that it has to go from their head to their heart, the barriers that exist between those two locations are so acute and so profound. And my responsibility on behalf of those boys is to remove them. But it's bloody hard.
I am so appreciative that you phrased it that way, from their head to their heart, and how I think there's a lot of kind of public shaming about the thing that you brought up, is that as men, or as any human being, we all have flaws. And I think it's been a challenge where men, I think, feel somewhat shamed for certain traits, because perhaps they're misapplying certain traits, or they're appearing to be toxic, as you're saying, toxic masculinity. And to me, as a psychologist, I always want to know what's driving the behavior, rather than just kind of shaming someone. And it is idealistic for me to say that, and I completely acknowledge that. As you know, we both share that idealistic version of.
There's a kindred spirit there, yeah.
Right.
There's a reason we're all so connected,
Yeah.
even
Right.
when we are disconnected.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that if you get to the authentic human spirit of a person, you're going to find that any type of behavior that seems toxic, and anybody can have toxic behaviors. That's part of being human, right? It's not just men who are toxic. Anyone can have toxic qualities. That's the shadow. Like anyone who's studied the human condition from psychology to philosophy understands that we all have like a shadow side to us, meaning that there's a part of us that could become destructive, right? Or toxic, or whatever you want to call it. And I love how you're saying that to help someone with that, it's got to come in an authentic way with the heart. And that is about really connecting with people. And I truly believe, especially the way that young boys have become more isolated too, that connection to really understand the human being for who they are and understand where the behaviors are coming from, rather than just shaming them for the behaviors, is essential, I think, to helping not just boys, but this applies to any human being.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think constantly, my responsibility to our boys is to try and see the world through their eyes, right? It's an impossible task for me. It's an impossible. It doesn't mean I don't have a red hot go at it, but I can't possibly empathise. And I spend days talking to our boys, and I can't get there. And what I do know, I think they love and respect me for trying, as I love and respect them. But they're the most connected and disconnected kids that probably ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
And that paradox, it has to be difficult. And I say very clearly that I don't think it's ever been harder to be a young person. I am absolutely clear that it has never been harder to be a young man, because what does a good man actually mean? I think you said at the beginning, Jerry, right? Like, what does that mean? And there is no, what did you say, formula, or, there is none, and nor should there be, because we're talking ultimately about the human condition, and the messiness of that is actually beautiful. I mean, the reason I love working with boys is, the only thing messier than a boys' school of 600 boys is 601 boys. It just gets messier by the boys. But I absolutely love them for their messiness and imperfection. And it's okay for them to be like that. And our responsibility is to love them unconditionally, so they become men who love unconditionally.
Yeah.
But
I think what you're saying right there, I just want to hit on that.
Yeah.
Tolerating the uncertainty of that, and the uncertainty, that there is no straightforward way.
Of course.
I think is, if you think from a meta perspective, is exactly what they need for themselves, because they're looking for answers to be like, oh, this is what a man is. I'm going to act this way. I'm going to treat women this way. I'm going to do this or that this way, right? That, to me, that's an anxiety manifesting as, I just want certainty. Just tell me what to do so I can fit in.
Of course.
And I can be popular, or I can be, have what I want, right? That's psychological to me, but it starts with tolerating the uncertainty. People don't like the messiness, but you're acknowledging the messiness is where the work is.
Oh, it's not only where the work is, where the beauty is.
Yeah, that's nicely said.
That's where the beauty is.
Yeah, that's nicely said.
And that's where the opportunity for growth exists.
Yeah.
I'm a lot older than them. I'm still bloody messy. I'm always going to be.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But I've learned to accept.
They need people to allow them to be with the messiness, which is what therapy is. I see it every day.
100%.
People bring their messiness, and they're honest, and they're open. That's the only way they get better.
Yeah.
I've never worked with someone who got better without being honest.
Of course. Yeah. And acknowledging that is one thing. Interiorizing it, as I've said before, and really examining it is another. And that's hard. And I would hate to be a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I literally could think nothing worse.
I know.
Right? I have a 16 and 14-year-old son. They drive me nuts in the same way I drove my parents nuts, I'm sure. But the reality is that I have an empathy for them that I don't have for myself when I was 15 or 16 at that age. You try and tell me how a young man or young woman, and I'll stick with men because it's what I know, how do they possibly make sense of their world? They have to go into their heart and discern what's real in a way I never had to do.
Yeah, what's
at
real?
That age.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even work out what's real? You talked about the screens. It's ironic. In our place at CM, at Catholic Memorial, relationship trumps all. So everything is about relationship. It is a stunning school. Like, I have been there for 6 months. It is so unique and so special. I have never worked in a place like it. And I have worked in good schools. I've been lucky. But the centrality of relationship that is centered in depth is something that I haven't experienced in a place like I do at CM. And I feel privileged and blessed to walk in there every day. And the adults are sensational, but ultimately it's about everything. It's about our boys. And the relationships I share with them, the way they look after me, I've never experienced it before. But I look at them and go, I don't know how they make sense of any of this. Like, what does a relationship look like to them? I mean, for some of them, a relationship exists on a screen. Like, we sit there and we say, you know, you've got to be men of depth. You've got to be able to walk in people's shoes. You've got to truly understand someone's context. You have to love unconditionally, whatever language it is we use with them, right? Which we mean. But when I speak to our boys, it strikes me over and over again, I don't even know what relationship means to these men. And the difficulty is that when they come into our place, I think we push them into the space. We draw them into the space, because you never impose anything on boys. Otherwise, as soon as they leave you, they won't have those standards. We have to draw them to a set of standards, which is harder, but much, much more beautiful. And the very concept of relationship and the screen, whatever you want to call it, the social media, the image piece, how they see themselves. And you know what? They're so sensitive.
I love what you just said. That's such a accurate way of putting it,
aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, they are so sensitive, and they feel. My God, they feel. You know, like, but we don't attribute that to them.
Yes.
Like, somehow they don't deserve that. I mean, what a load of crap. I mean, they are the victims of generations of men who have gone before them, and we don't ascribe the beauty to them, sensitivity. And I can tell you that they feel things in a way that others don't. And if their relationship's not right and they don't feel loved, they will stop learning. And I've had some very short period of time in co-ed schools, and girls do this better because they're smarter and they're more advanced and they're more mature. And we've known this for years, and now we're just starting to realise it, and the girls are leaving the boys in the dust.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Academically, their scores are worse than girls. Yeah.
The girls crush them, right? There's no way I'm sending my boys to a co-ed school. I don't want to feel bad. I want Elsie to go to co-ed school so she feel great hanging around the boys. But I love my boys, you know that. So, not just mine, my 600 as well. So, but they will just stop learning if they don't feel it. And we know this about them. I mean, you know the research better than me. I mean, ReidConnect was the guy, a little bit dated now, but it was all about relationship. You don't have a good relationship with boys, you lost them. Doesn't matter how smart they are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good they are at sport or anything. Like, if you don't have the relationship piece, right, yet we still say, boys feel. Don't feel. Are you kidding yourself? I mean, they can't fake it. And I love that about them. But it puts high pressure. And in an all-boys school, I feel the pressure acutely, like every moment. Every single moment with a boy is precious. And I say that to them. I will use language like, this is a precious moment. I will use language like, that they're beautiful. I will tell them that I love them.
Yeah.
I think I've probably said it 4 times in this podcast.
Yeah.
And you know what? They don't bat an eyelid. And they wrestle with it because they don't. If I said about, you know, a 16-year-old girl, she's a beautiful girl, that's fine. I say about one of my boys, beautiful.
Yeah.
Why do we balk at that?
Yeah.
Why do we balk at that? Because the world has a definition of what beautiful is that doesn't suit boys. That's rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, and
like you said, the messiness is the beauty of being human.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, we can call them beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I will call our boys beautiful. It freaked them out at first, but that's okay. Yeah. They now know what it means.
Right, exactly.
With context.
Right.
But I mean that about them.
Especially in the age of AI, how important is that? That's humanity.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, and so I look, I don't even know what the question was, right? But what I will say is that I think there's a pressure on forming boys into men that is more acute and harder than it ever has been. But the one positive is this. sorry, there's so many positive, but this for me is the real positive. At least the conversation's taking place. Like Jerry, Lex, like in the 80s, do you think a conversation about boys like this would even happen?
Right.
Never.
Right.
No one told me what it meant to be a good man.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't show pain, you're stoic, you front up, you shut up, you get on with your stuff. You're either lucky with your parents or you're not. I had a beautiful father who was gentle. I learned some of that, but without him, I wouldn't have. And now the thing I love is that we talk about it. I literally sit down with our boys and say, what does it mean to be a good man in your mind? Tell me what's in your... I will, rather than saying how I say, boys, how's your heart been moved today? And they tell me.
Oh, that's nice.
If I was in the 80s and one of the Morris brothers said to me, how's your heart been moved today? I'd probably flip out. Like, I wouldn't even know my heart. Geez, I've never even, apart from the fact that it keeps me alive, I've never really thought about what else it does, right? I mean, really, I'm not being facetious. That's just the reality of it.
True, yeah.
But if we think that conversation is easy for boys, we're kidding ourselves.
Yeah.
In my experience, and this is reflected back to me from boys who I've been fortunate enough to coexist with in schools who are now 40 and 41 and 42. Can I share a story?
Please.
Okay. So there was a guy, when I was in Ireland, I worked in a boarding school, I taught. I worked in a boarding house, lived with 76, 15-year-old guys. I look back now, I don't know how I survived it, but anyway, they were like my little brothers. I was only 28 or something. They ran rings around me. But I also coached a rugby team, and one of the boys I coached in rugby, he went on and was very successful. Played, I don't know how many times for Ireland, probably one of the most celebrated rugby players of all time. And he and I are still close. Now he's a father now, right? He's got two beautiful sons. He's a beautiful father, which actually, for me, matters more.
Oh, wow.
And he did an autobiography a couple of years ago. So the person writing the autobiography contacted me and said, hey, what's your favourite stories about Rob? And I said, oh, my God. So I rattled off 2 or 3 stories. And I said, I think that's probably, if I had an impact on him, I reckon those 3 things had the biggest impact. I read the book. Nope. The things he described were things that I had forgotten. They were moments.
Wow.
A word. A sentence.
Oh.
And why do I share that? Because you can get up and talk to boys as much as you want about what it means to be a good man. That will help, but it'll only go so far. If they don't feel it and witness it in unexpected moments, you won't move their hearts.
Yeah.
A week ago, I walked into school and I had a meeting upstairs. It was early. I don't know, maybe 6:30, 6:45 or something. And so I was walking upstairs to the meeting and one of our boys was sitting in kind of this alcove area and he was plugging away on the computer. I won't say his name, but let's call him Johnny. And I said, morning, Johnny, how you doing? And he goes, oh, good, thanks, Mr. Lewis. How are you? I said, good, what are you doing, mate? You're here early. And he was doing sport the night before, so I knew I was watching. It was like till 10 p.m, so I knew he'd got home late and everything. He said, yeah, I tried to do this last night, but I was just too tired. I said, I'm not surprised, bud. You played your guts out. You must be knackered. And he goes, yeah, I'm pretty tired. And he said, I like to do it so I can, come to school prepared. I said, you'll be okay. And I said, what is it? And he said, let's go about this math stuff. I said, do you like math? He goes, honestly, I hate it. I said, yeah, I'm with you. And I said, you seem stressed. I'm worried about you. He goes, I am, but once I get this done, I'm honestly going to be okay. But, thanks for checking in. I really appreciate it. I said, of course, mate. And as I walked off, he said to me, how are you doing, Mr. Lewis? Are you stressed? Just think about that for a moment, right? In the general scheme of things, that doesn't seem like much. It impacted me so greatly. And I said to him, I'm actually pretty good this morning. I said, but yesterday afternoon, I was pretty stressed. I couldn't close out the day and a truckload of emails and blah. And I'm going, why the bloody hell am I telling this kid? Like, he's not my therapist, this kid. And so, but it was a moment. Yeah. And I know that doesn't sound like much. Yeah. I'm getting to the point.
Yeah.
And so I walked upstairs and I went through the day and this just sat in my heart so beautifully. Right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I sort of found out where he was in the last class of the day, and 2 minutes before the end of the class, I walked up to bump into him, right? I didn't want him to think that I had gone up there intentionally. And as he came out of class, I said, hey, how was your day? And he goes, oh, it's a good thing. We had a good day. It worked out well. I said, that's great. He goes, how was yours? I said, it was good. I said, hey, you got a second? He said, yeah. I said, I want to thank you for asking that question. And he said, he goes, it's fine. He's a bit taken aback. He goes, oh, wasn't that big a deal? I said, it was. I said, I want you to ask that, be a man that always asks that question. He goes, you want me to ask everyone if they're stressed? I said, no, I don't want you to ask everyone if they're stressed. I said, I want you to ask the question.
Yeah.
I said, you got me? And he goes, yeah, I got you. I said, why is that important? And he said, because it would have been easier not to ask the question. I said, exactly.
Oh, that's such
And
a
I said,
great learning moment.
what did I feel when you asked the question? And he said, as true as I'm sitting here, he said, maybe you felt that I cared about you and loved you. I said, I did.
Oh,
Aw.
Now, it's a moment, but I felt so strongly that if he didn't know that, he needed to know the power of it.
yes.
When I reflected on that night and did my interior work, as I asked the boys to do, I felt that in that moment, he had communicated to me that I could be a leader of an all-boys school and be strong and gentle. And I hope that I communicated the same thing to him.
Mm.
And I say to our boys all the time that, because we always call our boys gentlemen, gentlemen, gentlemen. No, you got to earn the gentle.
Mm.
You got to earn it.
Oh, I like that.
And so I say to them, I will call you gentle men when you hear me call you gentlemen, when you hear me put the space and I call you gentle men,
Wow.
that's the standard. And I want our boys above all to be gentle and loving. But I also need them to understand that that is where the greatest strength lies.
Wow.
It's not on ripping the head off someone on an offensive line, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a certain type of strength. Again, another sports brutal, right? But that's not strong. That's not strength. Like, that's the strength that I grew up with. That's how I understood strength. I have come to learn strength as something fundamentally different.
Way harder.
Way harder. And I've come to learn it because of my own children and because of the boys that I am blessed to walk with. They teach me every day. Like, and I say to them that I will hold you to a standard, but you've got to hold me to it.
Mm.
And when I fall short of it, you've got to tell me. And they do.
Wow.
And if I speak to them and I'm off, or if I speak to them and they feel as though I'm guarded or it hasn't come from my heart, they say it to me.
Wow.
And I love that. And they should. And there's learning in that because they're looking at it going, hey, if he's telling us to live from his heart and we feel as though he's not, I'm going to hold him to that standard.
Wow.
And if our boys become men who hold that standard
Yeah.
as husbands, as fathers, as workers,
Yeah.
they will have that gentleness. And in fact, my biggest job is to give them permission
Mm-hmm.
to be gentle.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And so, I mean, you can see how much this means to me, right? Like, this is the stuff. And
You got to be courageous to do it.
so courageous because you're also working with boys who have fathers who feel, in some cases, feel fundamentally differently because of the way they were raised.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know if I would understand that manhood had this capacity or that we could talk about it this way if I wasn't blessed enough to spend 25 years working with young men and doing all I can to see the world through their eyes. I don't know if I would feel that way. Maybe I would because of my own three. You know, they moved my heart in a way I never thought possible and taught me how to love. But the reality was that shouldn't be necessary. That shouldn't be necessary. If I was the man I should be, I shouldn't have to rely on others to open my heart because I should be examining it myself and it should have capacity. I am a man who has had to rely on others, yourselves, people who I love, people who have been in my life, to open my heart. And that's okay because it is about relationship, but my capacity shouldn't depend on it. I don't want our boys to be men whose capacity relies on others. I want it to be there.
The standard.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, to be the standard.
To the standard. Like, that has to be the standard.
I just got to pause you guys for a second because
Please give us the female voice.
Well, not even that.
Sorry, Lex, I'm rubbing on.
No, I'm sitting here nodding for those of you who can't see us. I'm just nodding my head. And I'm also basking in the beauty of two men who I truly love so much as such a big part of me, just speaking so beautifully about the things you care so much about. And to know that not only are you in my life, but that you're in the lives of so many others in such a beautiful way that is so authentic and so true to your purpose and service and mission to others that it just blows me away. So I'm like tearing up and I'm so grateful. But I also wanted to share that everything you both are saying is so important, especially because the men and boys that I work with across the lifespan, I often hear from them that they're getting just such superficial, like surface level information whenever they inquire about something, whenever they share they're uncertain about something. They're not really getting genuine responses to their questions. And it could be something as simple as like an educational query that they're like, this, the way you explained it doesn't make sense to me. Can you show me a different way or explain this a little further? That, you know, they often get gaslit into thinking there's something wrong with them in a situation to even ask a question. Or even in, you know, I had a conversation with one of my college students this week where he's preparing to, you know, interact with folks in the business world to get an internship in a co-op. And he's like, the guidance I've been getting is just so superficial. It's like the same thing over and over again. It's not unique to me and who I am and my experience. And, you know, it's such a disservice that we're doing to a lot of young people, especially young men who have this standard in their mind of what they need to do and what they need to accomplish. But the target's constantly moving and they really don't have any concept or idea of where to start or even how to conceptualize the target that they feel compelled to be working towards in their lives across every aspect. My context is more educational, but, you know, in the work I do, it's not just about, you know, are you going to improve the way you learn? It's about being a learner in life, to be able to learn about yourself, to be able to learn about people that you work with, to learn about, you know, what are the next steps? What is even possible instead of just following this non-existent perfect line trajectory that again is shifting and turning and twisting without anybody giving, especially young boys and men, any information about how to understand themselves enough to even know how to guide themselves.
And then it leads them to take generic advice of just work harder.
Oh my gosh.
Which exactly is exactly what you're saying.
Focus more, work harder, just do your best, or, you know, don't stop.
And I think, you know, and so kind of I'm going to tie all this all together from Adam's comment, your comment, is I think the older generation, I think, this is not a generalization, but like if there is an older like generational approach to raising men and kind of that toughen up, work harder, right? Being really hard on the boys to learn lessons and like really being like punitive in a harsh way, right? To me, it's like we have to evolve how we help, right? Because that, in some ways, that could have actually came from an intention of wanting to help. And as you're saying, like there's so many different ways to help someone. It's not just work harder. Lex, that's what you're saying. There's different ways to learn what you need, learn how to navigate situations that's unique to you and to understand yourself. And I think it's important for adults to evolve to say like there's different ways to help. Like don't be afraid of trying a different way to help. I think adults get afraid of like, well, it's going to make them too soft or whatever, you know, and that's kind of missing the point.
Well, I'm gonna add to that a little bit too, and I think you both said this before, that the landscape is totally different than when we grew up, right? I've been talking a lot about how like decades of life sometimes dictate different things, needs, and realizations depending on, you know, where you're at different points in your life. But I don't think it's decades anymore. It's like such a very finite, small range of years that we're seeing these really broad differences in understanding technology, understanding the world, understanding ourselves. And I think it makes it even more difficult that we have even broader of a divide between the people that are supposed to be a role model and mentor in the lives of young people and the young people, which makes it even more difficult. And I know both of you, and you've said this a little bit already, that, you know, the answer, right, in very simple terms is to ask good questions, to try to, as you said, Ad, you know, walk in the shoes to gain the perspective of these young people. Because even though we are living in the same world, we are not living in the same world. And it's very difficult. And, you know, not to say that it's impossible, but the authenticity of saying, I don't know what your experience is.
Correct.
But I do know what role I can play in the way I can be a part of your world.
We can ask them, Lex.
Yeah, absolutely.
They tell me. Look,
can you share some of like the things you hear from them?
I can't relate to your world.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
Yeah.
They'll tell you.
That shows respect.
Oh, 100%. That's how you build trust in relationships.
And the other thing is, especially with boys, you're right, like work harder. I do it with my own boys. Then I stop and go, what does that mean? Seriously.
Yeah.
What does that mean? But you know what? I don't do it with my daughter. Why don't I?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I reduce our boys. And I'm the head of an all-boys school. I check myself, but that is generations of reducing boys.
It's ingrained.
I do it less now, and when it happens, I correct it, but there is still that tendency to do it. And if you ask boys, How can I help you do this? What works for you? How can I make it better? What's in your heart? The stuff I say.
What's getting in the way?
They'll tell you, yeah. Like, what's the biggest barrier here, boys? Tell me. Like, let's talk about that.
What are you preoccupied about? What are you anxious about? What are you what are you burnt out about? Yeah, whatever it is.
They'll tell you. I mean, this is your work.
Yeah.
You got to build the trust. You got to get them. They're hard work. Once you got them, they'll run through a wall for you.
Yeah.
They want to be loved. If they believe you love them, they will do anything for you.
Yeah.
But it's hard work. And the superficial, I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, there's a Jesuit who was the superior of the Society of Jesus. I just love this man. To talk about the epitome of gentleness and strength. And his name was Father Nicholas. He died a couple of years ago. He coined the phrase, the globalization of superficiality, right? And then the Pope, who happened to come from the Jesuits world, talked about the globalization of indifference. Those two terms really sit with me, right? And so this is the context in which our young people exist. It's very real. Yeah. It's very real. After this podcast, the three of us will go sit down and we may grab a beer and have a chat, and we probably won't even look at our phones. Like if we think that our young people can do that at 21, 22, like we used to, right? Like
it doesn't happen.
They can't do that.
No, it's so sad.
But in my heart, I believe they want to.
Oh my gosh.
They always do, yeah.
And so that's the bit we've got to hold on to.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they want it more.
Oh my gosh.
Because what we think is that, they live in a superficial, indifferent world. They must like it. They freaking hate it.
But that's the benefit.
They freaking hate it. Like they'll say it to me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like you think I want to sit on my phone? You don't think I want to engage in a conversation? I went to a dance with a freshman and sophomore. I was like, go talk to the girls. You don't think I want to talk to the girls? I go, oh my God. You don't talk to the girls? Like, I mean, what the hell? So I'm going over there introducing myself to the boys going, what am I doing here? I mean, Jerry can relate. I mean, like, it's impossible. Like, I mean, if I can't help you, Jerry, I can't help anyone. But the point is that, like it's an anecdote and it's funny at one level, but there wasn't a boy there who didn't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother issue.
They want to.
We've talked about social anxiety like twice here already, dedicated episodes about social anxiety because the prevalence of that has just escalated, right? How do we relate to each other? How do we talk to each other?
What's the right way of doing it?
What's the right way of doing it?
There is no right way.
But this is why we have this podcast, right? Because we get to have these really unique and really amazing conversations with young people that I think get buried in a lot of these generalizations of what's wrong with young people today. And I can't, Jerry got to meet some students that I was working with a couple weekends ago, and they both were like, oh, you guys are so lucky you grew up in the 80s and 90s. We wanted that. They're like, no technology. The stress and pressures were different. You can get into college without having 80,000 things. And, my whole argument, especially thinking about the academic and the educational aspects of things is, you could do college when you get to college, but you need to be ready for it.
Of course.
You need to be ready to step into the world with the confidence,
and not just academically,
skills, everything. Yeah.
That's
across the board.
The tip of the iceberg stuff. I mean,
do you remember how that conversation started, though? I simply said, hey, what is it like to grow up these days?
Yeah.
That set the stage.
Yeah.
I hate it.
How many times did they get that question? Probably never.
I mean, I speak to our boys all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
They don't actually like it.
Right.
A lot of them don't because they crave meaning.
Yes.
They crave connection.
Yes.
Depth.
And they get it in the wrong places now sometimes.
Of course. Wouldn't you?
Through exactly.
Where would you go find it, Jay?
That's when they kind of get, all the influences. Yeah.
It has to be instant gratification.
Yeah.
Everything, all the signposts they're saying to success in college, the GPAs, state championships.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally say to our boys, I said, I will never see you as your GPA. I will never see you as your college. I will never see you as your state championship.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about that stuff. It's great if you do it. That's not you.
Yeah.
And I say very clearly, in our place, this group of people in our school at the moment, this is our moment in time. We'll have 110 seniors leave. We'll have 110 new kids in the building next year. This is our year. And the only metric that we measure each other by is how deeply we love each other for this year.
And love themselves.
Yeah. And through that love, and call ourselves to something deeper. In our place, we say Christ.
Yeah.
What does that mean for young men? I don't know. But I had that conversation with them. And you know what? They want to have it. And so that's the stuff that matters. And if there's a state championship and a couple of kids go to Harvard, whatever. That's great. And I'm proud of them. I love them. I'll congratulate them. But if their hearts aren't good, I don't care about Harvard.
Yeah.
I care less about the state championship.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't care about their GPA. And so that stuff is very difficult. Easy for me to say, harder for boys to process. But if you think for 1 second they don't want to have the conversation,
Yes.
you're kidding themselves. And it's easy as adults to say they don't want to have it, or we don't understand their world. That is doing them a great disservice, you know. And I mean, even the way we look at, like, I'm a male head of an all-boys school, right? I'm a male head of an all-boys school because I'm male and because I'm Catholic, and it's a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that in any self-deprecating way. I have gifts, right? But I know that because of my gender, because of my religion, I have been put in positions, sometimes not when I'm ready, because the woman who is more experienced and better won't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the irony in that is the most powerful moments I have seen in 25 years of boys' education is when a woman is speaking to boys.
Wow.
They physically lean in.
Mm.
But do you think they would ever say that to that woman? Like, would they ever go up and say, hey, miss, you move my heart on that? If I did it, would they say it to me? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're fine with that. Yeah. That still exists.
Yeah.
And so certainly in all boys schools, we're still mired in that, right? We're moving, definitely. But that's a big piece of it. Like, I have done this whole podcast. All I've done is talk about boys and men and boys and boys. Like,
what about the women? Yeah.
The single biggest piece.
Yeah.
Like, who am I to tell a boy to be a good man when my generation has completely stuffed it up?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the women I love in my life, and who I'm lucky enough that they love me,
that's where it comes from.
They'll tell me, and I can tell you, when they tell me, it lands differently.
Yeah.
Who am I
Yeah.
to do that? It doesn't mean I can't try.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I can't share with my boys my mistakes and where I'm flawed and what I try to be and what I think a good man is. But that's a big piece of it as well. Like, we always talk about, read stuff on raising boys. Most of it's men.
That's so true.
The authors.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, I spend my life reading about boys' education.
Yeah, that's such a great point.
I haven't seen a lot of women write about boys' education yet.
Yeah. Challenge accepted.
No, I mean, you do it, Lex, but you're an outlier. I'm being honest. Like, it doesn't mean that we haven't changed.
No, it's true.
But I mean this sincerely. Like,
both are important. It's both and. It's not an either or. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. You're right. I'm talking two dichotoms, or polarizing it too. I don't mean to do that. You're right. What I'm saying is, in our school, as a man, I can have an impact on our boys in terms of them understanding themselves and what it means to be a man. Mm-hmm. But my colleagues who are women can have a similar impact, but in a different way.
Exactly.
And I do mean what I say when I said my greatest lessons and understanding of what it means to be a man
came from a woman.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, from women who I love and love me, right? I mean,
I love that you're saying that.
And so we've got to, I don't have answers for that.
No, but I think that's important, and especially from a developmental perspective, that we all have a responsibility in raising each other. And a lot of it actually has to do with the way in which women are empowered to set their own boundaries, to voice their own opinion, to be a part of the conversation. And you and I know through grad school, we had the great benefit of being interns at CAST years ago. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget, who were we, graduate students? We didn't know as much as the people that we had an opportunity to sit at the table with.
That's right.
And our voices were honored.
That's right.
And listened to and engaged with as much as, the great David Rose and all the folks that were around us that guided and mentored and taught us so much.
Yeah.
And I think that is the privilege of this conversation, is that, we can talk from your perspective and being men in the life of other men, that a lot of times when they don't have role models or mentors that show them what it means to be a good man, and everybody's perspective might be different in what that definition is. Yep. And it should be, because everybody has different backgrounds and experiences and beliefs. But to be a good person, right? We're saying men and boys, but it's like, what is it to be a good human?
Correct.
What is it to be a good person? What does it to be a good contributor to society? Because I think that is essentially the thread that runs through every single thing you guys are saying, and a woman's voice, and this is for the women out there too, that and the men in the lives of women, and we could have a whole nother conversation about this another time, that we need to be able to be those who have strong convictions and values. And not only do we say we have them, we need to live by them. Yeah. I say this to the young girls that I work with every day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew what I'm teaching you now when I was your age, because the powerhouse you will be just because you know the value and worth of yourself. Yeah. You know what's important to you, and you know how to manage the energies around you in a way that is supportive and safe, but also powerful, that you can give your gifts. And I think, honestly, I think this is a testament to the people that helped to raise us and the people in our lives to this day, that the three of us are able to live such purposeful lives, that, not only are they in line with our gifts and our talents and our values, but, we've been able to amplify what we do on a level that reaches hundreds and thousands of people, which is unbelievable. I go to bed, saying thank you and counting my blessings every night that I have the opportunity to be able to do this and to share it with others who hopefully can take like one iota of what we are putting out there to the world and putting it in, watching it resonate and amplify and extend further.
Let me just take the opportunity to say how much we, and obviously I, respect what you being able to do in the world as a woman. And I don't know if that's ever really said to you because of the way things operate, but it's incredible. And to Adam's point, I think we have learned about perspective taking and empathy and understanding other people through the women in our lives. And certainly you and Mom have, I probably wouldn't be the therapist I am without having you guys in my life. I wouldn't be able to know myself or to become who I am without you guys. So to Adam's point, like if we're talking about raising young men, like bring the women into the room and allow men and women to have relationships. I was talking to someone in therapy and she's like, it seems like some guys just have no real friendships with women. It's almost like they think it has to be romantic. I said, oh yeah, that's the Harry Met Sally movie. That's what it's about. Is that like, and the reality is like, why can't men and women have friendships? It's like, half of the population, you can't be friends with them. Like, what are you missing out on?
But do you think, Jen, in your experience,
thank you.
Like, yeah, and I echo that as well. Like, I mean, it's funny is that I've always seen you as a powerhouse. So it's, I mean that with great affection and love.
I'm held up by the two of you for sure.
Yeah,
thank you.
And so, but I can't pretend what it's like. So I'm not even going to. But I'm with Jerry. Like in terms of the impact of women on me and my understanding of self, the relationship with girls, I can't quite figure this out, because at one level, I find young men now almost freer and more comfortable. There seems to be a greater collective maturity in the way that young men talk about girls. I'm not pretending for 1 second that objectification, sexism doesn't exist. It's real.
Yeah, it's still there.
And it's a big challenge in all boys' schools, right? Like,
especially with the internet, that's
for sure,
super powerful.
For sure. So it may look a bit different now, but I also, when I look at our young men and the way there's a maturity, the way they talk about girls, they seem to have more girls that are friends, actually.
That's great.
And it could be whatever a friend means, whatever that means. It feels different to me, and perhaps it's because it's in front of them more. They still have to make sense of it, and I think that's where the difficulty thing. But I feel that they're certainly much more mature than I was at that age in terms of how they speak about girls, and girls they're not romantically connected with. Like, they will talk about girls with great affection as people who are friends, right? That gives me hope. It was really affirming to see both of your responses when I said that I believe that in my case, boys want to have that. They want to be good. They want depth. Like, because I live in a little microcosm with my crew, right? And we have a particular school and I go, yeah. And I go, oh, do they really want that? And you both responded in a particular way to that, right? Can I ask more about that? Like, that's your experience, right? They do want something more, don't they? Even though the world says something
completely.
Yeah.
There's no, we didn't bat an eye. Immediately, yes.
That's significant,
The
right?
answer is yes.
And the coolest part is that oftentimes Jerry and I, we might share a patient, right? So Jerry will work on the mental health side of things and I'll be more on the educational side, but they overlap in so many ways.
Yeah.
You talked about learning being emotional, and David Rose says it all the time.
Yep.
Teaching and learning are emotional. Yeah. And that's where the work ignites.
Has to be, right?
Has to be. But we
to be
see,
effective.
yeah, of course. So, but we see this because, and it's fascinating because oftentimes when Jerry and I collaborate, I'll hear just bits and pieces because I actually don't want to know too much about the mental health side of things. I need to know enough to be mindful of the situation. But, it's so fascinating when I see the spark that comes online when they just kind of open up and be more vulnerable about their experiences, especially with school that often shape and form them in a way that dictates the way in which they are confident, not only in academics, but other areas of their life, the way they might be embarrassed or shameful, right? That shame cycle, we see it a lot in academics, but we don't always talk about it, especially for boys, because they push it down, or their big behaviors often are the things that deflect from the difficulty that they're experiencing. And it's so fascinating because it almost feels, and Jerry and I, we've had this experience before, it almost feels like they've never even thought about some of the things that they end up revealing to us in our work together, or they never felt comfortable speaking about it with a teacher, a mentor, a parent, a friend, because of the expectations that they think are on them of how they're supposed to show up, what they are and aren't able to say. And I this is again part of the podcast. How many times have I said, young people get a bad rap.
Yeah.
They crave real, true connection and authentic bonds with people who care about them. Yeah. And I'm so glad you're using the word love because, especially in mental health and psychology, it's in education too. It's a term that doesn't get used. But at almost every single person I've ever worked with, this is just something that again, is another blessing I find unbelievable, but it's a testament to what we're saying here. At some point in my work with people, if I work with them for long enough, they'll hang up or they'll leave and be like, okay, love you. And then they catch themselves, young people, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, what are you sorry for? I'm like, but
it's coming from their heart.
It's something that like supposedly slips. But at the same time, like the work together, the relationships we form with these young people, it is based in love, right? We're showing them love so that they can start to love themselves, and then they can share that with others.
Yeah.
And all of these things, we don't talk about this. I teach a lot of professional development, right? And I go into a school, and not one school I've ever worked with is like, our students need to know that they're loved. Can you help the teachers to be able to open up to get to that point?
We say that in our place.
Yeah,
we say that. I mean, it's beautiful. The beginning of the year, and the new teacher said, "What do you expect of us?" I said, "Love our boys."
Look, I mean, so I'll say a quick story. So, like they're graduate students, so they're like early 20s, mid 20s, and I had a really nice class that really bonded so well. And I just stopped in the middle of our conversation, one class. I said, "Hey guys, look, guys and girls, just pause. What do you feel right now?" Kind of similar to what you did with this student. I said, look, this is as good as it gets in life. What you feel here, the bonding, the camaraderie, the connection, the authenticity, there's no defenses up. People are just caring about each other. This is as good as it gets. And by the way, you may not experience it when you move forward and you graduate and you're out of this class, but you better go recreate this somewhere else. And I feel like that's what you're trying to do with the students, is say, hey, feel it, and then go be a leader, because the truth is, there's plenty of places where people won't even get close to experiencing that again. And you have to, I always say with people with social anxiety, I'm like, hey, you're nervous about how people are going to treat you. Go be the way that you want to be treated. And just make that your value, make that your mission, is just treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's it. But, you
got to explicate it, because, it's so foreign, it's so counter to what the world is saying to them. It's funny, when I talk to our boys about leadership, who do I hold up?
Yeah.
Honestly. Who in this sight line can I hold up? And so in those moments, exactly what you're saying there, like I did with that boy, like you did in that thing, we have to explicate it. Hey, that's the stuff.
Yeah, to feel it.
That's the stuff. And
pay attention.
Yeah, I was at a retreat last night. Our boys are on what we call a Kairos retreat. It's a really beautiful experience. And the 15 boys up there, and I went up there last night for night prayers somewhere up in Medway or somewhere, I think it was. And I was there for 2 hours with them, and one of the boys was giving his witness about his own journey and his own faith, and he's very vulnerable. really beautiful kid, and enormous courage. Like, you talk about strength, right?
Mm.
He then the boys went and shared small groups. And I'm not on the retreat, so I didn't get into that space. That's a sacred space with them. But then we did a night prayer, and it was so beautiful. And it was 20 minutes. And one of our campus ministry director, Letty's, talk about a model of a beautiful man, and he did that. And then there was a stillness and a gentleness in the space that was so foreign to me, and therefore I assume has to be foreign to them, because their world's busier than mine in terms of what's in front of them.
Busy is a good word. These kids are so busy.
So busy. Mm-hmm. And afterwards I sat, like I said, to the leaders, the seniors who are leading it, there's 5 of them, and they thanked me for going to the retreat, which I don't like when they do that, because they should expect that of me. And I said that to them.
Yeah.
I said, boys, like, this is the stuff. Like, this is it. And they knew. They agreed. Like, these are wicked smart kids.
Yeah.
They are more self-aware than I could ever dream of being at 18 years of age. These are boys who've got everything going for them. They're good-looking kids. They're athletic. They're smart.
Yeah.
They're about to go to great colleges.
Yeah.
And above all, they've got good hearts, right? They're they're the boys. These are the men we want, right?
Yeah.
But in that moment, and we had a conversation, that was bigger than anything they'd ever done.
Amazing.
When I got in the car and drove back, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I'm going, how do I replicate that tomorrow when I go into the school for the boys? I couldn't have failed more spectacularly, right? Because I'm going, how can I do that in chemistry? I can't bloody do this. I don't know how to do it. But the thing is, at least I'm thinking about it, right? Yeah. And I'm always in that space.
Right, you can't force it.
You can't force it, right? And boys has to be organic. And those boys, it wasn't lip service. They want meaning and fulfillment and something deeper. And they want to examine their hearts. And that's when they're most alive. That's when they're most alive.
The perfect way to put it.
Did you agree? I mean, I get the thrill of the 100%, and here's the college thing, the BC or wherever the hell they go, Georgetown, whatever it may be, right? That's ephemeral. This isn't, and they want that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and I'm gonna magnify that for a minute, because for folks that are out there listening, Adam works in a very specific context in the school that has a great emphasis on faith.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But
Sure.
But for anybody out there, we need to make more of those internal moments more external, like you just did.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Where it's almost like, as you were talking about it, in my mind, I have all these images that come to mind when I have these conversations. And I literally imagined you taking a snapshot, and that feeling that existed in that moment became a photograph that became a part of the portfolios, the photograph books of those boys' lives.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Yep.
And for anybody who's out there, I'm just going to emphasize this a little bit more, because that is such a special moment that I think we are so busy, whether you're a caregiver, a parent, an educator, we're moving so quickly that we miss those small moments. And people ask all the time, I'm sure you guys get these questions too. They're like, well, Alexis, how do we help to get kids to be engaged and motivated to do the work, to be better students, to be better people? And I'm like, that is the moment. My new thing, Adam, you'll appreciate this. You can use this. I always say that our intervention is in our interactions.
Of course.
And when we could take that internal feeling and externalize it in a way that we can share it together, and it becomes imprinted on the story of our lives.
That's right.
I want to take what you just said and put a frame around it and put it on the wall of every school, right?
Yeah,
because that's what we need.
Yeah, we've got to capture it, and it speaks also. It's a cycle, right? So you've heard me say sometimes, I'm beyond the interior work, but then the piece that's missing that we have to do for our young people is explicate that, name that when it happens,
and
because they don't have those moments. There's so much in front of them. They don't actually have the time and space which they crave.
Yes,
and they don't realize how much they crave it until they have it.
Yeah.
So we had Marianne Wolf on, one of the leading experts in reading, the science of reading, and she referenced the philosopher who wrote a book and basically said. And I'm going to try to pull in the listeners here, because I know that you're coming from a Catholic perspective, and the idea of Christ is important to this, things revolve around that. But I want to pull in everybody, even if they don't kind of follow that faith, right?
Sure.
That she said, it is in these types of moments that we're referring to, in the stillness of these moments. She's like, those are the moments where you want to call it God, you want to call it whatever, the supernatural, that those are the moments where you feel that. And that's why I think this applies to everybody, and it's in those moments to cherish. And they happen, and when you can really understand, and that's why I think therapy, like that, like when you can feel and resonate and really understand someone on such a deep level, and they can sit with that and be comfortable with the fact that this is who you are at a core level. Like you said, like all those other things, that's not who they are as a person. Those are behaviors, those are habits, those are, externally validated aspects of a person. But to feel seen for yourself. We had a whole episode on athlete mental health, and I really emphasize this, is that it's a fragile thing to base your entire identity on external validation for something specific like being a great athlete. And the problem is that a lot of times people come to work with me or someone else when that gets shattered, not before.
But can you blame them, Jerry, in this world?
Cannot. And that's why what you're saying and what we're all talking about is so important, is to try to infuse these ideas along the journey, along the way, which is by the way, it's not easy to do. We're all emphasizing this. We're not saying it's easy, but aren't most things that are amazing in life worth hard work? And that's why, people say, oh, what we're talking about is going to make men soft. Actually, this is harder. This is the opposite of being soft. Doing something hard like this.
And it makes them stronger.
Yeah.
Much stronger. And but the other thing is that it's also easy to say we can't do it, but they're hungry for it. And it's harder because of the world that exists around them.
Yeah.
But they're hungrier for it than we were. And that is serious. And you're talking about something deeper. As you said, in our place we use the language of Christ, but I don't talk about Christ with the boys as some abstract thing. When I say our standard's Christ, it's the person of Christ and the model and the values. And I will literally say to them, boys, I see the face of Christ in you, and Christ exists in the space between us. I believe that. You're responsible. You have to become men who draw me into that sacred space, as I have to do that for you. And if you spend your life drawing others into the sacred space that exists between people, only your heart can do that. And so whatever language you want to put around it, I just happen to use the language I know and believe in.
Right, exactly.
But it's exactly what you're talking about. It's something deeper. It is something more. And it is about acknowledging, accepting and celebrating the fact that our young people want that. And I believe that with my whole heart. And so it is hard, but as I said, like you're literally having conversation. This is your work. And even though it's hard, we're having the conversation. Like we are having conversations, in my case, with young men that I never dreamt I'd be having. Honestly.
Yeah.
Is it hard? Absolutely.
It's hard because it's uncertain.
It's uncertain.
Yeah.
But that's good as well, because what in life is.
Yeah.
But getting them to understand that, appreciate and love themselves through it, and not have all the answers despite the fact the world says you have to have them.
Exactly.
Like we have to be the counterpoint for them. And it doesn't, some people think if you do that, you're compromising on standards. Nope, you're raising them. And that's the thing.
Say that one more time.
Well, I think that in the uncertainty, getting them to live with the uncertainty and love themselves through the uncertainty, some people think that's compromising standards. I think it's elevating it.
Let me just emphasize.
Does that make sense?
What you said makes so much sense, so much so that some people in our field would suggest that's actually going to make people mentally healthier.
Of course.
Because mental health issues tend to revolve around rigidity and revolve around fragility of needing certainty in everything, which could become controlling, which could become not liking yourself, which could become controlling other people. It comes all these things, right?
Yep.
So this all revolves around something deeper than, just like changing someone. We're not about changing someone.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Jerry, help me with this, because I have boys in our school who are hurting badly in terms of mental health. I lose sleep every night over them. And I would say in 90% of those cases, it is an incapacity to deal with uncertainty, a desire to have clarity and certainty at a time when it's never going to happen. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But they can't accept that.
Or feel that.
Or feel it, right? Or feel
safe.
Safe, yeah. It's heartbreaking. And because they're beautiful kids, and in a lot of cases, they've got extraordinary gifts. They're talented. Their capacity for love. They've got everything going for them. The pain.
Yeah, it's real.
Oh, my God.
And nobody can see it.
It is the worst.
So hard.
In my role, I never thought there'd be anything worse than kicking a kid out of a school. I remember the first kid I had to remove from school in 2010 in Sydney, who I'm still in contact with now. I still wake up over that. It destroyed me.
No.
But it was the right thing for him, actually. And he's fine, but I'm not. This is worse. Not being able to help a young man, in my case, who I look at and think this kid has all the gifts in the world, who is experiencing an internal torment and anguish that I can't make sense of at a cognitive level, but I feel acutely through him, and not being able to help. Jerry, Lex, this is what you do. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what you do because the boys who hurt like that, I can walk beside and get them help, and I'll always have, it's their school, I'm there for them. But even when it's getting to that acute point, that, I'm not overstating it when I say that breaks my heart. And God, they hurt. And it's so hard because when we talk about the way they internalize things and they get to that point where they don't have permission.
Put it to words.
It's not even just saying it, permission to even to say that it's okay, internally, let alone explicating it, right? Yeah. They can't. And then it just seems like they get in, I'm asking for help, I guess, from both of you. They seem, so I can help my kids, right? It seems then they get in this perpetuating cycle where the more they think about it, the more they hurt themselves. What
you just said is really important. So you said the more they think about it, the worse they feel. And the reason for that, in my experience, is because sometimes when you continuously ruminate and obsess over something that's bothering you, you're not actually feeling it. It's a way to avoid what you're feeling, right? To be able to feel what you're feeling requires a tremendous amount of acceptance and safety to say, okay, I feel terribly sad. I feel terribly upset. I feel afraid of this. In order to work through those emotions, you have to first be able to accept it, which is vulnerability. And I think you do an incredible job of giving people permission to feel that, because without accepting it, you're going to try to control it. And sometimes controlling it is fine, right? Sometimes you want to push through. Sometimes as an athlete, you want to kind of move beyond the butterflies and kind of keep working hard, right? I'm not saying don't do that, but when you have real pain and real struggles emotionally, the first step is to accept it and go into it and feel like you have someone around you to help you to do that.
I think that's the key. There's two things I want to say. I want to touch upon that because I think for boys especially, we minimize the struggle, or when they can't articulate what they're feeling, that they feel like they need to push it down further, because oftentimes adults in their lives are afraid to open that box.
Yes.
Because they're afraid of seeing what actually is underneath.
Yes.
And the boys can't say it yet. So I think
they don't have the language for it.
Right. And I think a lot of the manifestation of some of these mental health challenges that especially boys are dealing with is that a lot of adults in their worlds are afraid to even broach that because they're not sure how to receive, hold, and respond to it.
Or even to understand why it's happening.
Right.
Some of my job is to be like, hey, I'm going to help you to understand why you feel this way. Just understanding it is incredibly grounding.
Totally.
Right? But if you can't accept it and talk about it, then you're never going to get to the point of understanding where it's coming from.
So Adam, as you were talking about the spiritual side of things, there's two quick things I want to mention, and we can extrapolate this for hours, but I hope that we can use this.
Are you telling me to be succinct, Lex? That's what I'm hearing.
Yep, that's what we're going for.
She's being beautifully direct.
We're gonna do this together,
she's being
guys.
Gentle and strong.
We are all, especially you and I, Adam, very long-winded, and we can have a lot of really in-depth conversations
about things we love.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use this as a way for us to kind of pull out a couple key themes that I think anybody can walk away from this conversation, from this episode with that interact with boys or young men.
Yes.
So you mentioned the spirituality and the faith side of things, and I think this is so important. I have this foundation that I share with the people I work with that, when we're talking about executive functions, they're like, well, what do I have to do? What's a strategy or a tool? And like, it's not often about that. That helps gives us structure and allows for us to activate some of these skills. But really beyond that, we have a set of a couple different foundational components. I won't go into all of them, but one of them is actually faith. And oftentimes when I say the word faith to them, they kind of like get uncomfortable. Some of them are very open about their faith and they'll share and we'll talk about what it means to them because it's a part of building motivation and drive and persistence in them too. But when I say faith, I talk about it not as a religious aspect. I said for some people it can be religious. It can be spirit. It can be something outside of ourselves.
A ritual.
Right? I said, but faith is really about building faith in ourselves, faith in each other, the people that guide us, the people that support us, the systems that surround us. And you and I come from, developmental psychology, thinking about Bronfenbrenner. Yeah. And I don't know if I've even told you this, but I had the great privilege of having a few conversations with Dr. Jerome Kagan before he passed.
Oh my God, he's your man.
Yeah, he's the
temperament guy. He's pretty awesome though.
He was amazing.
Oh my God, he's a legend.
But I had a similar interaction, right? Because at the time I was working for a psychological firm that had a lot of really acute cases who were often coming off of inpatient or partial programs.
Yes.
And they were reintegrating in school. And I worked with them in a very vulnerable place to help them reacclimate to the world outside of a hospital. And I looked at him and I said, Dr. Kagan, I said, you sharing your perspective over the years of what you found in your work, I'm seeing today that there are so many young people really struggling. They feel so hurt, as you were talking about. They feel like they have no hope, they have no sense of self, and they feel like anything they do just doesn't matter anymore. So why are we seeing more of this now than ever? And he said something that was so profound, and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as he did, and I'm not going to extrapolate from there. But he said, Alexis, there's a lack of trust and there's a lack of faith, right? If people are looking to the media, they're losing faith in politics and political figures. They're losing faith in leaders. They're losing faith in their parents who they don't often see because they're working so hard just to keep up and to keep the family system going. And they're losing faith in the people around them. How are they supposed to have faith in themselves? And, it's we can go into this for hours and forever, but I think it's a really important thing to remember that regardless of what you do, especially when we're shaping boys and men, we want to help them to gain a sense of faith. And what you're doing, the way you describe your interactions with the boys you work with, the boys you're raising at home, the friendships that you cultivate and you hold on to for your life, that is about building faith and trust. Yeah. And ultimately, when we talk about education or athletics or the workforce or any aspect of life, that's the core of almost all of it. So as we are kind of wrapping up here together, I think what I shared kind of like puts a bow and ties everything we've been talking about together. And we're not a big fan of here are 3 things that you can do that can help to, raise boys and men better. But, if you were to share, if you were to think about the boys that you work with, what are some of the things you want them to leave school having learned about themselves or about the world or what's possible?
Yeah, I believe that if our boys leave as men who have an enormous capacity for love, that have a unshakable clarity and conviction in their heart, and a real, I guess I get emotional because it means so much, but the question you asked me is the very thing I spend my days thinking about. And if they have a deep, deep commitment to make their world better through how they relate and how they love and how present they are to others, then I think we've done our job. And that will look different for each of them. But if those things underpin who they are and how they live, then I'd be very proud. And, we're in the process of trying to appoint a new principal at our place. It's a very important position in the school. And I spoke to many boys about what they want in their principal. Not one of them said, we want a great athletic program. Not one of them said, We want someone who's going to lead a fantastic curriculum and program of pedagogy and teaching and learning. The one thing that came through is presence and knowing us.
Oh, wow. That's remarkable. So telling.
It's beautiful.
They said it in their own way, but they all said it. And it didn't matter if they were 13. It didn't matter if they were 18 or 15 or 14. That's what they want. And if they become men who are present and authentic and know people by how they love them, then that's...
What more can we ask for?
Yeah. And I firmly believe that the rest of the other stuff that is important at one level, colleges,
It'll
and
come
all that
naturally.
stuff, it won't only come naturally if you don't get that part right first. It won't come at all. It might happen, but it won't be the experience that will form them because they don't have the heart for it. And I know that it's abstract, but it doesn't feel abstract when I say it.
I'm so grateful for you saying that. In our field, and I supervise students who, they have internships and they work at these prestigious universities and they see it. I see it in my practice. Alexis sees it, you're doing an incredible service because you are so right that you can get everything you want, but if your heart's not in it, it will not be what you expect. And everybody has expectations about every little thing nowadays. Life revolves around expectations, so much so that you are extraordinarily accurate in saying you can have all these expectations and you can get to where you think you want to be, but if your heart's not in it, it will not be what you expected.
But Jerry, it's taken me 50 years to realize it.
But that's the reason you can realize it and
I
say
don't want
it.
that for these boys.
Well, you're paying it forward.
I grew up without that capacity to love. And I came from a loving family.
Yeah.
Because as a man,
there's a system. Yeah.
We're going to break that down for them.
I love that.
We're going to give them that permission that they crave, right? And we may not get there in our time, but I can tell you that the young men we work with, they will, for the ones that follow, right? And I think that's a very serious responsibility we all have. And Lex, you know how strongly I feel about you and the role of women in it. It's not, men can't do it. We'll try.
We could do it together.
Yep.
And I just want to share one more point of gratitude for, a lot of these conversations are about what men are doing wrong. And I love and appreciate how we focused on what we could do well.
Yeah.
Right? How we can cultivate more of this, because there's a lot of work to be done, and we hope that there's more who can join us in this journey.
Yeah. And we can be beautiful.
Yeah. Everybody.
You feel how much we love you.
Yeah.
Right? We can do it. Yeah. We can do it.
Alexis was saying the other day to someone we were chatting with, she's like, Jerry and I, we try to be we just are authentic with people. And sometimes it's almost like some people don't know what to do with it.
Well, what do you do with it?
So
they don't experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to it's like people are not used to it.
It's crushing.
Yeah. Well, more work to be done. Grateful for you both. Thank you for the conversation, and thank you for joining us, Adam. We're so grateful to you.
I'm grateful for you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to the ReidConnect-Ed podcast. Please remember that this is a podcast intended to educate and share ideas, but it is not a substitute for professional care that may be beneficial to you at different points of your life. If you are in need of support, please contact your primary care physician, local hospital, educational institution, or support staff at your place of employment to seek out referrals for what may be most helpful for you. Ideas shared here have been shaped by many years of training, incredible mentors, research, theory, evidence-based practices, and our work with individuals over the years, but it's not intended to represent opinions of those we work with or who we are affiliated with. The ReidConnect-Ed podcast is hosted by siblings Alexis Reid and Dr. Gerald Reid. Original music is written and recorded by Gerald Reid. The recording was done by Cybersound Studios. If you want to follow along on this journey with us, the ReidConnect-Ed podcast will be releasing new episodes every 2 weeks each season. So please subscribe for updates and notifications. Feel free to also follow us on Instagram at ReidConnect-Ed podcast. That's ReidConnect-Ed podcast, and Twitter at ReidConnect-Ed. We are grateful for you joining us and look forward to future episodes. In the meanwhile, be curious, be open, and be well.